Module 3 will expand upon the layered paint technique. You will learn how to mix paint and apply larger areas of color. You can then apply the paint with a large brush, creating a smooth, even surface. It's not possible to do this properly when working with paint on your palette. You'll be making both an exercise and a finished painting for this module, but this is a technique you'll also use in your other paintings during this course. You will follow directions to make one painting exercise, such as the painting shown here, and then you will have a chance to make your own painting. You will be pre-mixing each color you want to use in a small jar. I will first show you how to do this. Squeeze a small amount of paint into a container and mix it very thoroughly so the whole thing is liquid. If you can save this with a cap on the jar, you can use it later. Test it first with a small amount of paint on a spare piece of paper to make sure it's the right amount of lightness or darkness. Remember, you can always make something darker with another layer, but if it's too dark, you cannot make it lighter. For larger areas like this, it's best to use your 1-inch brush and smooth it out evenly so there aren't any pools of paint on the page. By now you've realized that watercolor always dries a little bit lighter than it looks when it's wet. Follow this with another color for the second stripe and leave a little bit of space of white paper on the edges in between the two stripes. When it's completely dry, go over those two stripes with another color. Here I've chosen orange, but use whatever color you wish. Even though the layer below is completely dry, I still take care to put the upper layer on rather quickly and not brushing the surface too much so as not to disturb the lower layer. I try not to leave any large pools of color laying on the surface. For this next stripe, I've mixed blue and green together for one of them, and for the other, I've used purple. Now I have one layer of stripes in one direction and two in the other. For my final layers, I went back over the orange layers I'd painted with a smaller stripe of alizarin crimson in the middle of both. This gives me a total of 4 layers in some sections and 1, 2, and 3 layers in others. I enjoy the unpredictability of whatever color combinations I might arrive at through layering. I always take notes in case I want to use any of these layered color combinations again. As we conclude this exercise, I want to bring something to your attention that you've no doubt noticed by now. Sometimes when you layer colors, you'll notice on the very edge what looks like a very fine line. This is because when very watery paint is put on, the pigment starts to move over and settles on the edge. Some people really like the effect, but others don't. If it's not something you care for, once the painting is entirely and completely dry, you can take clear water and brush it over the area or even over the entire painting. Some people do this in between layers to soften some of those hard edges that begin to form. After I've done that with this painting, you can see the difference. It's quite a subtle change and often just a matter of preference, but it does make the transition of color layers a little smoother. Now that you've been able to practice the large shapes of color technique, it's time to make your own painting. Be inventive with a combination of geometric and organic shapes as well as signs and symbols in colors of your choice. You can find other versions of the painting exercise and examples of the luminous large layered shapes painting in the sample painting folder.